The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. It was sitting on the kitchen table when Owen Calloway came downstairs at 6:15, which meant someone had put it there after he had gone to bed and before he had come down, and the only person with a key to his house besides himself was his sister, who lived 40 minutes away and would not have driven here at this hour without calling first. He picked it up. His name was on the front in handwriting he did not recognize. Precise, controlled, the handwriting of someone who had trained themselves out of their natural script into something more legible. Inside was a single card, cream, no letterhead, for lines. I have a proposal that would benefit us both. It requires discretion and approximately 90 days of your time. The compensation is $500,000. If you are willing to hear the terms, come to the address below at 9 o'clock. He read it twice. He set it on the table and made coffee and packed his daughter's lunch and walked her to school and came back and read it a third time. Then he looked at the number at the bottom of the card, which was not a phone number, but an address. A building on Harlow Street he recognized because everyone in this city recognized the Mercer building. 43 floors of glass and steel that had gone up 6 years ago and had never quite stopped being the thing people looked at when they looked at the skyline. He thought about his bank account, which had a number in it that was not $500,000 and was not close to $500,000 and had been shrinking for 11 months in the patient, relentless way of numbers that go in one direction when you are not watching them carefully enough. He thought about his daughter, Lily, who was 9 years old and had asked him last week whether they were going to have to move again. He had told her no. He had not been certain that was true. He put the card in his jacket pocket and drove to Harlow Street. The woman who had sent the card was named Adeline Mercer. Owen knew this by the time he reached the 43rd floor, because the receptionist had given him a visitor badge with a route on it, and the route led to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a nameplate on the door that said A. Mercer, Chief Executive. And the woman standing at the window when he came in had the particular stillness of someone who had been watching for his arrival and was now performing the act of not having been watching. She was 35 years old. Dark hair pulled back, a charcoal blazer over a white shirt, the kind of compose that takes years to become automatic. She turned when he came in and looked at him with the direct assessment of someone who had already done their research and was now verifying it in person. "Mr. Calloway," she said. "Miss Mercer," he said. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. He sat. She sat. Between them, the desk was clean. One folder, one pen, a glass of water on each side that had been placed there before he arrived. "You came," she said. "The number was large enough to hear the terms," he said. "That doesn't mean I'll agree to them." Something moved in her expression, not quite approval, but the acknowledgement of a useful quality. She opened the folder. "I need a husband," she said, "for 90 days, beginning on the 15th of this month." He looked at her. "Why?" "My grandfather's estate includes a controlling interest in Mercer Group, this company. The terms of the inheritance require that I be married by the age of 36 to receive it without contestation. I turned 36 in 93 days. She paused. "My grandfather was a traditional man. He believed, as traditional men do, that a woman running a company needed a man beside her to make the board comfortable. He encoded that belief in his will 20 years ago, and I have been managing the consequences ever since. And if you don't meet the condition, the controlling interest transfers to my cousin Marcus, who will sell the company to a private equity firm within 6 months and lay off approximately 400 people." She said it the way she said most things, without visible emotion, as a fact she had processed and filed. "I built this company from his inheritance. I am not willing to let Marcus dismantle it because my grandfather did not believe women could lead alone." Owen looked at the folder. "So you need someone to stand beside you for 90 days. To marry me," she said, "legally, with the appropriate documentation, to attend 4 board events and 2 family functions, and to conduct himself with sufficient credibility that no one investigates further." A pause, and then to divorce me quietly at the end of the 90 days, at which point the estate is legally mine and the arrangement concludes. $500,000, he said, transferred in 3 installments, the first on signing, the second on day 45, the third on completion. He looked at the glass of water. He did not pick it up. You researched me, he said. Yes. What did you find? Owen Calloway, 38. Former structural engineer, licensed for 11 years, last employed by Harrowbell Development until 14 months ago when the firm was dissolved in a fraud case that had nothing to do with you personally. Single father. One daughter, Lily, 9 years old. She paused. Your financial situation is difficult, but not catastrophic. You have skills and experience that would find employment eventually, but eventually is not a comfortable interval when you have a child. He looked at her. You found a man with enough need to say yes, and enough credibility to be convincing. I found a man with enough integrity that I could trust him with 90 days of access to my life, she said. Those are not the same search. He was quiet for a moment. You said credibility, he said. What does that require specifically? Living arrangements would need to be adjusted. We would need to share an address for the duration. My apartment has a second bedroom. A pause. Your daughter would need to be accommodated. He looked up. You're aware of Lily. I'm aware that you would not agree to anything that did not accommodate Lily. That seemed relevant to include. He picked up the glass of water. He drank from it. He set it down. I need to think about it, he said. Of course, she said. I would be concerned if you didn't. He picked Lily up from school at 3:15, and they walked home the long way, which was the way they went when he needed to think and she needed to talk, because the long way had a park with a bench by the duck pond, and Lily had strong opinions about ducks that she liked to air periodically. She told him 3 things on the walk. A girl in her class had gotten a hamster and named it after a planet. The librarian had ordered a book Lily had requested, and it had arrived. And there was going to be a maths test on Friday, which she was not worried about, but which she felt he should know. He told her the duck pond. They sat on the bench. The ducks were being ducks. Lily had found a piece of bread crust in her coat pocket, which she distributed with the even-handedness of a diplomat. Dad, she said, without looking up from the ducks. Yes, you have something to tell me. It was not a question. She had inherited from somewhere. He was not sure where. Possibly from no one, and simply from being Lily. The specific ability to read the air around him. There's a situation, he said. I need to explain it to you honestly because it involves you, and you're old enough to understand it. She finished distributing the bread crust and looked at him, 9 years old, with her mother's dark eyes and his tendency toward stillness when something mattered. He explained it as honestly as he could, without the parts she didn't need. A woman who needed help with something legal and complicated. A short-term arrangement. It would mean living somewhere different for a few months, in a bigger place, and he would need to be at some events in the evenings. Is she nice? Lily said. I don't know yet, he said. I only met her this morning. What's her name? Adeline. Lily considered the ducks. Why does she need you specifically? She said. He thought about how to answer this honestly. She needs someone she can trust, and she found reasons to think she could trust me. What reasons? That's a fair question, he said. I'm not entirely sure. I think partly because I'm in a situation where I need help too, and she thought that meant we could understand each other. Lily was quiet for a moment. Are you going to say yes? I don't know yet, he said. That's why I'm talking to you. She looked at the ducks. A large one was being territorial about a piece of bread. She observed this with scientific neutrality. If she turns out not to be nice, Lily said, we can leave. Yes, he said, we can always leave. And if she turns out to be nice, she said, then it's fine. Either way, it's fine. He looked at his daughter. You're 9, he said. I know, she said. He called the number on the card the next morning. The contract arrived by courier the same afternoon. 12 pages, dense and specific, drafted with the thoroughness of someone who had thought about every variable and was not leaving anything to chance. He read it 3 times. He made 6 notes in the margin. He called a solicitor friend, a man named Peter who had been at university with him and who owed him a favor, and asked him to read it. Peter called back 2 hours later. It's clean, he said. Unusually clean. She's protected herself, but she's also protected you. There's a clause in here, Section 7, that says if either party terminates before 90 days, the full amount is still payable to you. She can't claw it back. Why would she put that in? Owen said. Because she wants you to trust it, Peter said. She doesn't want you to spend 90 days worried she'll change your mind. Owen looked at the clause. Section 7. For sentences. Read me the last line, he said. Peter read it. The obligation to the second party is unconditional upon the first party's needs and not contingent on the duration of the arrangement. He signed it the following morning. The apartment on the 31st floor of a building on Crane Street had 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a kitchen that looked like it had been designed by someone who read about cooking without doing it. Adeline showed them around on a Saturday. She was wearing something less formal than the boardroom, dark trousers, a simple gray shirt, and she moved through the apartment with the slight self-consciousness of someone allowing people into a space they are not used to sharing. Lily walked through each room with the systematic attention of a building inspector. She examined the view from the large windows. She opened the wardrobe in the second bedroom, assessed it, and closed it. She looked at the kitchen with the expression of someone taking stock. Which is my room? She said. This one, Adeline said. If that's all right. Lily went back into it. She stood in the center and turned slowly, looking at the ceiling, the window, the walls. It's bigger than my room at home, she said. I know, Adeline said. I thought that might be all right. Lily looked at her with the direct assessment she brought to all new information. Do you know how to cook? Not particularly, Adeline said. Your father does, apparently. He makes good pasta, Lily said. From scratch, not from a box. He says the box kind is a different thing. Is he right? Lily considered. It's still fine from a box, she said, with scrupulous fairness. But his is better. Something shifted in Adeline's expression. The composed professional face, briefly interrupted by something warmer and slightly surprised by itself. I'll take your word for it, she said. Owen was watching this from the doorway. He had been watching it the way he watched most things, with attention and without comment, reading the small signals. Lily had not warmed to many people quickly in the past 3 years. She had learned, the way children learn things from the air around them, to be careful. She had not been careful here. He noted that. The arrangement settled into its shape the way most things settled, not all at once, but gradually, through the accumulation of small details that added up to a routine before anyone had decided to call it one. Owen cooked in the evenings. He had always cooked. It was the thing he had that was reliable and finite, a problem with an answer you could taste. Adeline worked until 8 or 9 most nights, and the food was there when she arrived, not as a performance of domestic harmony, but because the alternative was her eating whatever could be ordered in, which was what she had been doing before they arrived. She ate at the table, as evidenced by the stack of delivery menus. So did he. In the third kitchen drawer. The first few nights, they talked about the food, which was neutral ground. Then Lily began asking Adeline questions, which was Lily's primary mode of engagement with the world, and Adeline answered them with the same directness she brought to everything. No talking down, no performing warmth she hadn't yet located, just honest answers to honest questions. Lily asked what a CEO was. Adeline explained it without simplifying it, and Lily nodded with the satisfaction of someone who has been given the real version of a thing. Lily asked why Adeline's grandfather had put that condition in the will. Adeline paused, and then said that some people believed women needed a man's approval to be taken seriously, and that her grandfather was one of those people, and that she disagreed, but that the will was the will, and she had chosen to solve the problem rather than fight it directly, because fighting it directly would have taken longer than she had. Lily thought about this. That's practical, she said. Yes, Adeline said. Do you think it's fair? No, Adeline said. But fair and solvable are different problems. Lily looked at this with the specific focus she gave to ideas she found worth keeping. Owen watched his daughter file it away. At the board events, Owen stood beside Adeline with the quiet confidence of a man who was comfortable in rooms of various kinds. He had been in boardrooms before, not this kind, but the construction equivalent, where money moved and decisions were made, and the people who made them were not always the people with the best answers. He knew how to read those rooms. He asked questions when questions were appropriate. He said nothing when nothing was the right thing to say. Adeline noticed this. He could tell she noticed it, because she was the kind of person who noticed everything, and was slightly surprised when what she noticed was better than expected. After the second board event, in the car on the way back, she said, You know how to be in a room. So do you, he said. I've had to learn it, she said. It doesn't come naturally to me. He looked at the city going past the window. It doesn't come naturally to anyone, he said. Some people just look like it does. She was quiet for a moment. Is that what you see when you look at me? He thought about it honestly. I see someone who has decided exactly who she is in every room she walks into, he said. Whether that's natural or practiced doesn't change what it looks like from the outside. She did not answer immediately. When she did, her voice was slightly different from the boardroom voice. That's a more accurate description than I usually receive. You usually receive the description people think you want, he said. Yes, she said. I do. It was a Tuesday. Lily had a school thing, a presentation, the kind that required a parent present, at 3:30. Owen had it in his calendar. He had never missed a school thing in 3 years, which was not a performance of parenthood, but simply what he considered the job. He was there at 3:15. Adeline was there at 3:20. He had not told her about it. He had not told her. It simply had not occurred to him to mention it, because the arrangement did not include her presence at school events, and he had not assumed she would come. But she was there, in the third row, still in her work blazer, which she had not had time to change out of, with a coffee cup from the cafe around the corner from the office, and the expression of someone who has come somewhere directly, and without planning the logistics. He sat beside her. You didn't have to come, he said quietly. I know, she said. How did you know it was today? Lily told me at breakfast, she said. She mentioned it as a fact. She wasn't asking. He looked at the front of the room, where the presentations were beginning. She does that, he said. States things as facts. She's not asking for anything. She's just telling you. I know, Adeline said. I understood that. He looked at her. She was watching the front of the room. Her coffee cup was in both hands. He looked at the front of the room, too. Lily's presentation was about river systems, which she had chosen because she was currently in what she called her water phase and intended to be thorough about it. She spoke with the organized confidence of someone who has prepared properly and is not afraid of the audience. She looked out at the rows of parents and teachers and found Owen in the third row, and he gave her the small nod that meant I'm here, which was the only signal required. Then she found Adeline, and something crossed her face. Not surprise exactly, because Lily had stated it as a fact at breakfast and had perhaps been doing what she sometimes did, which was stating a thing as a fact in the hope that the fact would follow. Whatever it was, it lasted less than a second, and then she was back to the river systems. After walking out, Lily took Owen's hand and then, after a moment, took Adeline's hand too. Adeline went very still for half a second. Then she held on. On day 30, Owen went to the bank. He transferred $500,000 to Adeline Mercer's personal account in 3 separate transactions so that none of them triggered an automatic flag. He had looked up the limits the previous evening. He was precise about these things. Then he went home, to the apartment, which had become home in the way places become home before you decide they have, and made coffee and sat at the kitchen table and waited. She came in at 7:30, which was earlier than usual. She had the particular alertness of someone whose phone had shown her something unexpected. You returned the money, she said. Yes. She set her bag down. She did not sit immediately. She stood at the counter with the expression of someone working through the logic of a thing that was not computing correctly. Why? He looked at his coffee cup. Because I don't want it. The contract entitles you to it regardless of. I know what the contract says, he said. I don't want it. She was quiet. The arrangement hasn't concluded. There are 60 days remaining. I know that too, he said. I'm not leaving. She looked at him. Then why return it? He had thought about how to say this. He had thought about it carefully. The way he thought about things that needed to be said correctly. Because I don't want there to be a number between us, he said. I don't want to be here because of a number. And I don't want you to wonder, for the next 60 days, whether the things I do are because of a number. The silence that followed was the kind that has weight. The things you do, she said carefully. Coming to board events, he said. Being in the room correctly. Cooking in the evenings. He paused. Being at the school presentation. She looked at him for a long moment. The composed face was doing something complicated underneath. Those things would have happened anyway, she said. Without the money. I know, he said. That's why I returned it. She sat down, across from him, at the kitchen table that had become a place where the three of them ate and talked and were ordinary together in the way that ordinary things accumulate into something more. Owen, she said, his name, for the first time, without the professional distance she had been maintaining around it. Yes. What are you saying specifically? He looked at her. I'm saying that I would like to stay for the remaining 60 days. And after the 60 days, I would like the question of whether to stay to be asked again without a contract attached to it. She was very still. And Lily, she said. Lily took your hand after the presentation, he said. She doesn't do that with people she's unsure about. She's 9. She's been unsure about a lot of people in the past 3 years. Something moved across Adeline's face. The composed surface, fractured, not broken, fractured, in the way that light fractures when it hits something with a different density. I don't know how to do this, she said. The other part, not the professional part, the other part. I know, he said. Neither do I, particularly. We have 60 days to figure it out. She looked at her hands on the table. Then she looked up. You really returned all of it, she said. Every dollar. That's an absurd thing to do. Probably, he said. She looked at him with the expression that had been appearing more frequently over 30 days. The one underneath the CEO. The one that had not yet decided whether it was safe to stay visible. I'll make a note, she said, that the arrangement is continuing under revised terms. What terms? No number, she said. That's the only revision. He picked up his coffee cup. That works, he said. Marcus Mercer arrived on day 47. He was 41 years old and had the specific ease of a man who had spent his life assuming that things would eventually be arranged in his favor. He came to a family dinner that Adeline's mother had organized, the second family function in the contract's terms, in a car that was too shiny and with an opinion on everything that he delivered before being asked for it. He was not surprised to find Owen there. He had clearly researched this. The marriage had been registered, the documentation was in order, and Marcus was intelligent enough to have seen it coming. What he had not fully expected, Owen thought, was the specific texture of the arrangement. He had expected, perhaps, a man who looked like a transaction, a man with the slightly uncertain quality of someone performing a role for compensation. Owen was not performing anything. He was at the table helping Adeline's mother with a dish she was serving because Adeline's mother, a warm, practical woman named Helen, had asked him to, and he had simply done it. And he and Helen had been talking for 20 minutes about a building project in the city that she had opinions on, and Owen had opinions on it too, because he had worked on the structural elements of a similar project 8 years ago, and the conversation had been genuinely interesting. Marcus watched this from the doorway. Then he sat at the table and tried, over the course of the meal, several different approaches. He referred to Owen as Adeline's friend twice. Owen let it pass both times without adjusting it, because the adjustment would have meant something to Marcus, and he did not need to give Marcus things. He asked Owen questions about his work that were designed to establish his current lack of employment. Owen answered them accurately and without apology. He was between projects. He had worked in structural engineering for 11 years. He was currently considering 2 offers. Both of those last things were true. He had received the first offer 3 days ago, a consultancy contract from a firm that had found his name through a contact. The second had come yesterday. He had not mentioned them to Adeline because the timing had not been right, and they were his business until he decided what to do with them. Marcus looked at him for a moment after the work questions, recalibrating. Then he tried Lily. He looked across the table at Lily, who had been eating and observing with equal attention, and said something about how it must be interesting, having a new home, all this change. Lily looked at him. It's not that different, she said. No, Marcus said. Moving to a new place, new school situation. Same school, Lily said. Dad drives me. And it's not that different because the things that matter are the same. Marcus smiled with the patience of a man humoring a child. And what things are those? Lily looked at him with the gray eyes that missed nothing. Dad makes pasta. We eat at the table. We talk about real things. She looked at her plate. Those are the things that matter. The table was briefly quiet. Adeline, beside Owen, did not look at him, but her hand, on the table, moved a fraction of an inch toward his. He did not look at it either. He simply turned his hand, so it was there if she needed it. She did not pick it up, but she did not move away. Marcus saw this, the specific quality of what he saw, the gesture, the turned hand, the fraction of distance between them that was not transactional, seemed to settle something in him that no legal document had managed to settle. He left before dessert. Helen watched him go and said nothing, but she refilled Owen's coffee without asking and patted his shoulder as she did it, which was the language Helen used for approval. The day before the contract technically concluded, Adeline came into the kitchen at 11 at night. Owen was at the table. Lily had been asleep for 2 hours. He was reading something, a structural report for the consultancy project he had accepted 6 weeks ago, which had turned out to be more interesting than the brief suggested, which was usually how the best projects went. Adeline sat across from him. She had her hair down, which had been happening more often in the evenings. She was in ordinary clothes, the version of her that had gradually been appearing in the apartment that was nothing like the 43rd floor version and was, he thought, more accurate. Tomorrow, she said. Yes. The estate transfers in the morning, she said. The legal team has confirmed it. Marcus has been informed. He's contesting nothing. Apparently the documentation is airtight. Good, Owen said. She looked at her hands on the table. The arrangement technically concludes tomorrow evening. Yes, he said. You asked, on day 30, for the question to be asked again at the end of 60 days, without a contract attached. I remember. She looked up. I'm asking it now. 1 day early, because I would like the answer not to be given in the context of the official conclusion of the contract. I would like it to be given now, when there is nothing attached to it in either direction. He set down the report. Do you want to stay? She said. He looked at her. The woman who had sent a card with 4 lines, who had put Section 7 in the contract because she wanted him to trust it, who had come to the school presentation without being asked, who had held Lily's hand, who had, over 89 days, been letting the CEO recede incrementally in the evenings until the person underneath was simply present at the kitchen table. Yes, he said. She held the word for a moment. It will be complicated, she said. My life is the company, the board, the schedule. It won't be simple. I know, he said. And Lily? Lily already decided, he said. About a month ago. I think you know that. Something crossed her face that was not the professional face and had never been the professional face. It was something older and quieter and more true. I don't know how to be what you need, she said. I want to say that clearly. I know how to run a company. I don't know how to be. She paused, looking for the right word. Present in the way you are present. The school thing. The pasta. The way you listen. I didn't know either, he said. 3 years ago, I didn't know how to do any of it. You learn it from doing it every day. Is that an offer to teach me? He looked at her. It's an observation that things that seem fixed usually aren't. She was quiet for a moment. I returned your money, she said. Technically, I mean. It's sitting in an account I set up the day you transferred it back. I didn't spend it. I didn't return it to my accounts. It's been sitting there for 59 days. He looked at her. It's yours, she said. It was always yours. But I want to give it to you differently. She paused. There's a firm that's been trying to find a lead structural engineer for a development project on the east side. It's a 2-year contract. Interesting work. I had nothing to do with the project before 60 days ago. I have something to do with it now. You called in a favor, he said. I made an introduction, she said. What you do with it is your business. But the work is real and you're qualified, and you would be being paid for your expertise, not for... She stopped. Not for 90 days, he said. Not for 90 days, she agreed. He looked at the table between them, the kitchen table that had become the place where the 3 of them were most themselves. The project on the east side, he said. What's the building? Mixed-use residential. 12 floors. They've had 2 structural engineers fall through, and they're behind schedule, and the brief is genuinely complicated. She paused. I thought you might find it interesting. He thought about it. He thought about 12 floors and a complicated brief, and being behind schedule, and the specific satisfaction of walking into a problem that other people had not been able to solve, and finding the thing that was wrong. "I'll take the meeting," he said. She nodded. Neither of them said anything for a moment. The apartment was quiet in the specific way of late nights. The city below, doing its continuous ordinary work. Lily asleep in the room that had been hers for 89 days, and would continue to be hers. "Owen," she said. "Yes." "Stay." He looked at her. Just that. One word, said without the professional distance, without the careful construction of a sentence designed to leave room for the other person to decline gracefully. Just stay. He looked at her for a long moment. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. She nodded. Once. The particular nod of a person who has said the difficult thing and received the answer and is now processing the fact of it without yet knowing what to do with it. She stood up. She was going to say goodnight and go to her room, and he understood that. Understood that some things needed to be arrived at gradually, in their own time, without being pushed toward a shape they were not ready for yet. She passed his chair. She stopped. She put her hand on his shoulder. Brief, certain. The gesture of someone who has decided something and is expressing it with the minimum required. Then she went to her room. He sat at the kitchen table, for a while longer with the structural report, and the quiet apartment and the city below, and thought about 90 days, and what they had been, and what the day after 90 days was going to be. Lily asked at breakfast, with the directness she brought to everything she had decided was important, whether they were staying. Owen was at the stove. Adeline was at the table with coffee and her phone, reading something she would deal with after breakfast, because before breakfast was family time, and she had learned this without being told, which was the kind of learning that stuck. "Yes," Owen said. Lily looked at Adeline. "Are you okay with that?" "Very much," Adeline said. She said it the way she was learning to say things. Lily nodded directly. She returned to her cereal with the satisfaction of someone whose assessment had been confirmed itself. "Good," she said, different and because better. "I told the ducks we weren't moving, and I don't want to have to go back and revise that." Owen turned from the stove. Adeline looked up from her phone. "The ducks," Owen said. "At the park pond," Lily said. "I told them on the way home from school last week. I said we were staying." She looked at her cereal. They didn't say anything, but I think they heard. Owen looked at Adeline. Adeline looked at Owen. Something happened in the space between them that was not a boardroom thing, and not a contract thing, and not a 90-day thing. It was simpler and quieter and considerably more permanent. "I'll take your word for it," Adeline said, which was what she had said to Lily on the first day, about the pasta. And Lily remembered this and smiled in the way she smiled when something completed a circle she had been watching. Owen turned back to the stove. Outside, the city was doing what it always did. 12 floors on the east side were waiting for a structural engineer. 400 people at Mercer Group had a company that would not be sold. And at a kitchen table on the 31st floor, 3 people were eating breakfast on the 91st day of an arrangement that had, somewhere around day 22, stopped being an arrangement. No one had noted the exact moment. No one needed to. Some things begin as transactions and become something else entirely. The question is never how they began. The question is what you choose to do on day 31.